Conversations across time. 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 Conversations across time.
Good evening. Welcome once again to an episode of Conversations Across Time. I am joined tonight by Mark Hoffman, show historian.
Great to be back.
My friend Irv Madnick, show legal analyst. And John Mason, Conversation Across Time, traditional bad boy, is here as his own self.
Which is very good.
It's very good to be you, John.
Thank you.
You're such a pussycat. They don't know that. And to my left is Babette Josephs.
Always to the left.
Always to the left.
You're to the left of everything.
I'm working at it.
You're way over.
Now, way over to the left. If anyone
That's me.
can remember last week when we broke,
Say who you are.
I am Vivian Crawford, the host of Conversations Across Time. Last week when we left, I made a statement that as of October 3rd, 54% of all Republicans, male and female, believe even if the allegations against Judge Brett Kavanaugh are true, he should still be confirmed to the United States Supreme Court. Babette has been stewing to respond to that. Babette.
Well, first of all, I think we have to say the allegations are very serious. That he was basically close to being a rapist. I mean, that seems clear from everything that's come out. And if 54% of all state reps or Republicans and Democrats agree with that, I'm not surprised because it seems to me that the Republican Party has been shrinking very much over even though just the last couple of election cycles. And this is a phenomena that you can find, you could see it on the left if we were shrinking, we're just not, we're growing, that the extremists in a smaller group are certainly more influential than in a larger group. And I think that's what we're seeing in the Republican Party, and this might be the end of the Republicans.
Well, it's probably the end of the Republican Party as the Republican Party that we thought we knew.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's shrinking in the general population doesn't affect the fact that it hasn't shrunk yet in the Congress, because in the Congress they're in the majority.
But there's
And
always a lag.
when you're in the majority, they respond to that 54%.
There's
and they're going to
always a
vote in
lag.
favor of him because of that 54%.
There's always a lag, and if you have, and you've done this more than I have, so I will stand corrected. If you read what the founders said, this is what they were looking for. They were looking for a government that was stable, even if it had to be maybe more to the right than some of them were personally. That's their legacy. That's our legacy.
It shows to me that what you've indicated, Vivian, and what people are saying that they don't care about Kavanaugh's drinking and whoring in college, and Trump's shady business practices and his own grabbing by the episodes, shows to me that the religious right movement, what I used to be called the moral majority, I'm old enough for that, is corrupt. I mean, the religious evangelical political movement is corrupt. They don't give a rat's ass, pardon my French, about morality. They only care about having
Power.
control. Right. They only care about having control and domination over their perceived enemies, and women or children are expendable to them.
John, are you saying that they're hypocritical?
Yes, exactly.
Really?
Yep.
I'm shocked.
I don't think they're
I'm
corrupt.
shocked, John. They're hypocritical. In other words, their moral standards don't apply to Trump
Right,
or
exactly.
Kavanaugh
Their
just want
moral
power for the
standards
wealthy.
do
Here's
not
the thi-
apply
here's the
to
thing.
anybody
I'm
who
shocked to hear that.
advances their
Listen.
political agenda.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can't call them corrupt. They're more practical, maybe, than you think they are, because nobody and no group can always get everything they want. But they can get some of the things that they want that they think are most important.
What haven't they gotten?
Huh? What have they?
Since Trump has been in power,
What have
what
they not
what
gotten?
have they not gotten?
Probably
Well, the
nothing.
elimination of
That's
the
the whole
Johnson
point, though.
Amendment.
They are willing
Pennsylvania has a
to
has a
overlook
Democratic
the
governor.
shortfalls of Trump as a person, Trump's
they got-
ethic and morality, to make
They-
sure that the most important things to them are taken care of.
They got.
Now, what's wrong?
They
I don't
got
think there's anything
immigrant
wrong with
ban
that,
so
by the
far.
way.
They got Gorich. They got a tax cut, and that's
Okay.
all they wanted. So they got what they wanted.
So far.
Right.
They want more things than that.
Of course.
they do.
Elimination of the Johnson
But the
vote.
They
point is
want to
they
kill all
know-
the women and black people and just have white men.
Listen, they
Power
know, like
corrupts.
all people know, you have a position, I have a position, John has a, we all have our positions. But if we really look at it realistically, we know that whatever our position is, we're never, ever going to have the situation unless we become the ruling monarch and we can dictate policy of whatever we want. We're never going to have everything that we want.
Right.
And by the way, this country is predicated on that.
Exactly.
There's supposed to be a give and a
Exactly.
take and compromise, and that's what's missing.
Well,
but
see-
you can't blame them. You can't blame the right or the evangelicals or the religious right for being corrupt. They're only doing
I
what they
blame
think
the
is
people
best
Madison,
for
in the
not
them.
Federalist
vote.
Papers, Madison, Hamilton all wrote it again. They all were worried about that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I
They
believe
were
me,
all
I
worried
understand
about
that.
it, and that's why they built in the system of
How
checks
many
and
people
balances.
are
That's
doing
the
voter
reality.
So the
registration?
problem is, the courts and the legislative branch are not doing what they're supposed to do under the Constitution because, in fact, Hamilton and Madison and John Jay and the Federalist Papers, they anticipated all this stuff, and that's what they said. We're going to have groups that are going to be this outrageous. We're going to, in fact, somebody said, I forget who it
You
was.
it's outrageous,
you
not
said-
to them.
No,
It's
but
not outrageous to them.
no, I'm
No,
saying,
the
but they,
founders.
for the
Of
for the
course they did, and
democracy.
that's why there's checks
but
and balances.
They said that probably they're in their graves. They're wondering why we didn't get a whacked out president before this because they were
But
worried
we
about
did.
that.
We had Nixon.
So
we
the
had a whacked
problem-
out president before.
Well, they're talking about
And
even
Reagan,
early
I
on.
mean, he had,
Well, Reagan
symptoms
was
of
out of it, but
Alzheimer's.
his intentions weren't the same as Trump and Nixon. The thing is, the other branches of government are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's the problem.
I don't buy that. And
You don't buy it,
the-
well-
the checks and balances are there.
Where?
If the cases are brought before the Supreme Court will issue a decree and decide whether it's right or it's wrong.
Based on
The
what?
Senate-
Based on the law?
Senate- wait a
based
second.
on the hearing you just saw with Brett Kavanaugh, when he rules on the case, do you have confidence he ruled on the case based
course
on
not.
law on his own
course not.
bigotry?
Partisan, his own partisan.
There are 9 justices on the Supreme Court.
I
Each one of
refer,
those-
I
every one of
refer,
those justices have their
refer
own
you to
limits.
Bush versus Gore, so that's why.
I don't-
I
I
rest my
believe-
case.
I believe
I
that
rest
the
my
left,
case, Bush versus Gore.
I believe that the left relies too much on the Supreme Court.
I agree with you 100%.
and
I
and
agree
I
with you
believe
100%.
we have to go to the voters.
Right.
That's
I
exactly the
wholeheartedly-
point. That's the point that I was
We got-
reaching.
I agree
And
with
all
that.
these checks and balances
I
are
agree
there,
with you.
and they may be limited to a certain extent by the powers that they have, but by the powers the judiciary has and the powers that
Right.
the Congress has. But nobody has taken away the power of the
The
people.
vote, right.
And that's the major
I
point
agree.
that's to be made.
I agree
That's
with
how
that.
change is brought about. And
But-
that's
We
what
gotta
people
go-
have to do.
I agree. We got to go to the grassroots, educate the voters, educate the working people.
Well, I
and
asked this
urge them
question.
to go out and vote.
It's
Yeah,
too
that's
late
question
now.
about voter
No, it's not too
registration.
late.
It's
we
too
can
late
talk to them.
now to get people registered to vote. But how many people who are listening, how many people are here before voter registration closed made sure that all their friends were registered and were going to go to the polls.
How about having
I
people who
agree.
are registered vote?
Get them out
They
there
didn't
and
do that
have
in the
them
election in
urge them to vote.
2016.
We got to do it
Not
now.
even 50% of the registered voters voted.
Wait a minute, let me
I
just say
know
this.
that.
Look,
Hold on.
Listen, regardless of
Listen.
what side wins,
Vivian
because
has no
the
voice. Let
Republicans
her
won the
speak.
votes, they got more votes, so they
Men.
control. So, and the Democrats, if they get more
Gentlemen.
votes, regardless of who wins, you need people
And they say women
that are
talk a lot.
elected. I don't care if they're men or women or transgender people who have the country's best interest in their heart, even though they represent the people. I don't care if they're Republicans or Democrats. They're elected. All the people in the Senate and all the people in the House, they were elected. The Republicans have a majority in the Senate. It doesn't matter that they can say we were elected. They do not have the best interest of the country in their heart. And
They don't have the best interest of your country and my country, but they have the best interest of their country. This country has a lot of best interests.
No, no, I'm not
I mean-
talking about vested interests. I'm talking about what the Constitution provides.
The Constitution has always been subject to interpretation.
But
And it's
course.
interpreted the way the people that are empowered.
Every
what in
generation
the
it
Constitution gives the majority leader of the Senate the right to uphold the president's appointment for over a year? You tell me. You cite, you're a lawyer, cite the Constitution.
There's nothing in the Constitution that prevents it.
May I
The
just
point
ask-
is, they can make, whatever rules they have to make in the Senate, they can make.
That's what I'm
Gentlemen.
saying. If they're not
Okay,
patriots,
so-
they make bad rules. It
so-
doesn't matter who you
Gentlemen.
But
elect.
that's the power of the
I
majority.
use that term very advisedly.
I've been trying.
Vivian would like
There's
to
two
say
things.
something, and her
ahead.
voice.
Sure.
We
Well,
have
you're a woman. We're not letting you talk.
That's right. Exactly right.
We have to understand.
That's
to
annoying.
Eric's point, what do they want and what are they getting? They're getting what they want because they are silently and very quietly putting on the federal bench, at the district court level, at the appellate level, they are putting in those Federalist court, those Federalist Society judges. And so it's going to be stacked. The judiciary cannot check anything because they are packing that court. All of the judicial appointments that have gone through, Trump has gotten more federal judicial appointments than Obama,
Not
than
than
Bush.
Roosevelt.
He's gotten more federal judges appointed since he's been in place. It's 10 times the number of Bush
Why?
and
You know why?
and
You know why?
Obama combined.
I'll tell you why. Because he's a president that has a Senate that's also Republican.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, if Obama
everything gets
had
confirmed.
a Democratic Senate, then he would have put in
All
what we
those-
would call fair-minded judges, or judges that support his point of view.
The whole-
point is,
that's what
you
led to the
need the majority to win.
That's what led
And
to the
that's where
Civil
voting
War.
comes in.
And where we're at now in the country is similar to the Civil War. When people say my interest, and that there's always going to be people like that. So you had the abolitionists, you had the pro-slavery people, you had the union people. The problem is that the whole concept of our democracy, and everybody says my keg, for Brett Kahn, my keg is half empty. The whole problem is democracy in the legislature, in the judiciary, in the press. You need some people who are not that partisan, who look for the best interest. You need a Daniel Webster. You need
This
a
is
Henry
really
Clay
not a
sometimes.
democracy,
You
it's a
can't have
republic. There's
Mitch
a difference.
McConnell's and Paul Ryan's all the time. Or,
There are
Ryan,
facts.
I'll attack the left too. And you can't have Harry Reid's. You need
Right.
people that stand up for what's good for the country, and that's not where we're at now, and that's why we're going down this rat hole.
I agree.
Well, the independents in this country, those people who are not partisan Democrats and those people who are not partisan Republicans, the great majority, not the moral majority so much, but the great majority of people in this country have to do what they have to do and vote people in.
Right, and
that-
people
that
are
have
listening
what
to
they
us.
believe in is right to,
And the
to,
people
to
who
lead
are
us.
listening to our show, are they making sure that they're going to vote?
Well, they
Is
have to.
everybody in their household going
I
to vote?
can't speak for the people who
Are
are
all-
listening to the show. We
but
do what we
that's-
can.
that's
but
what
But I
the
think
key
I
is.
think we
We
have
have
That's
to
the
go
key.
knock on. I'm a committee person in my
Me too.
ward, and my job is to go out to knock on doors.
That's
speak
what
to
I do.
people and say, are you going? Ask them, are you going to vote this November 6th? And if they say yes, that's great.
I think, go, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, my point is, I mean, talking over the TV is not going to do it. We got to hit the streets.
Everything helps.
Yeah, hit the streets, knock
Everything
on people's
helps.
doors and urge
I
them,
agree.
please go out and vote.
Well,
I
register
think the whole
people. You're
panel
getting
would
people
agree.
registered, aren't you?
Oh, damn right.
I think the whole panel would agree that this may be the most consequential election in American history. I think we will agree with that.
Certainly in my
And
lifetime.
if, I mean,
We've said that a few times.
right,
it's
but I thought,
consequential, there's no
so,
question.
right, and
What gets
my
tighter?
fear,
been
I
other
mean, with all
elections.
the optimism, again, I'm the pessimist around here. With all the optimism, I'm afraid that it's not going to be a blue wave, and I'm afraid the Republicans are going to at least control the Senate again. I'm pretty sure of that, and I don't think the Democrats are going to do that well as people think in the House. And I'm afraid we're really in trouble. So
You
I
might
say
be
to
right.
everyone,
You might
we
be
got to
right.
make sure that doesn't happen.
You
Well,
might
we'll
be
know in
right.
a month whether that's so or not.
You might be
The
right.
chances are that the Democrat, what it looks
But
like now,
I just
they'll
urge.
they'll win the House of Representatives.
Well, I'm saying we
They'll
got
not
to
win the
prevent that
Senate.
because
Yeah. And I think you
and
can.
again, I'm always accused of being the most negative person.
And
I
I'm
really
accused
see
of
us
being
moving
too
toward
positive.
an autocratic and really an imperial presidency with no checks.
And that's what Kavanaugh wants in his essay.
Well,
I
yeah,
like to-
that's why they like them.
Yeah, that's why. Yes, that's it. That's why he supports.
There's a case coming up, and I don't know.
Gamble you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons they want to rush through the
So that he-
nomination,
so
get
that
him
they've got
confirmed.
him there for
This
that
is a
case.
case that will really check. There's two cases, but the Gamble case is, can they use double jeopardy? It would overturn a lower court decision where you can try a guy in the state court again after it was the federal court. If they overturn that, that means all the moves that Mueller is making, that's saying that Trump, you can't. We'll try Manafort. If you pardon Manafort, we can try him in New York State. Would be out the window. And there's another case coming up. I believe it's called the SAC case that deals with polygraphs. And Kavanaugh said they're unreliable. Yet he ruled as a district court that they could be used.
They
Just
are
from a
unreliable.
legal standpoint, again, the
He was
rulings
right
today
the
are
first time.
polygraphs are not admissible in the court of law.
Right,
He
right.
was
Yeah,
right.
but
the
he
first
ruled-
time.
It doesn't
ruled-
mean they're not reliable in other circumstances.
Right, that's
like
what Kavanaugh said, but
let's
he
go
wouldn't
back to
take one
Gamble for a
himself.
minute. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Well, let's go back to Gamble for a minute. We who are members of the bar understand what double jeopardy is, and the criminal bar know what double jeopardy is, and that's that if you've been tried for an offense, you can't be tried again.
Right.
And the issue in Gamble is if you're tried in a federal court for
Right.
an offense, and this comes up a lot, by the way, in, for instance, where a police officer killed a kid in
Yes,
Missouri.
in Missouri.
Okay. So the
Ferguson.
state courts tried the police officer for murder. Well, he was found not guilty of murder.
Right, they-
Well, then the federal court came in and tried him for a violation of the kid's civil rights.
Which they found.
Okay, so the question becomes, well, he was already tried. The issues are, it may be a different title to what he's being charged with, but the actual fact pattern is the same. Now, I like to consider myself a probably more left than right, and I like to look at the law fairly.
I
And
will
I've always
concede
thought, by the way,
that.
I've always thought that to try somebody, once somebody's tried either in the federal court or in the state court, that it should be double jeopardy. Okay, because that's
Jeopardy
what
attaches.
double jeopardy. I mean,
Yes.
that's really
You
a
should not be
constitutional-
able to try
it's a
people twice
constitutional
for the
provision.
same
Now, the
offense.
issue here is about pardons.
You're right.
Okay, okay, whether he can pardon Manafort, whether he could pardon Cohen.
or himself.
But,
No,
but wait a second, the cat is already out of the bag on that, because what point would it make? If they pardon Manafort now, who cares? He's already given everything he has to give to the prosecutors in this case, and Cohen has too.
I
and White's
You don't
can't
know-
already
you
like to
don't
see
know
him in
that.
jail.
What do you mean I don't know that? I absolutely do know that, because they would have never given him the
would have never
type
given
of
him a deal.
They
No
would have
deal.
never given him that deal
Right.
if he didn't proffer
up everything.
information that they
don't know about
need
that.
and want. So that's the problem.
See, you don't
So
just get a deal.
that-
There's gotta be a
that
proffer.
case is
You
of
gotta
no
proffer.
consequence to the present circumstances, I think.
Well, wait a second. Sure it is. Suppose Mueller indicts Donald Jr.
Okay,
So, and then the president pardons him.
okay.
So now he can't be tried in the state court for all these Trump corporation violations. That's what you're saying.
No,
you're
he's
for
saying
that.
the same
And the
facts
lower
matter.
court ruled again. The lower court upheld the convictions. It didn't overturn it. It upheld it. The lower court said they could be tried twice.
I understand what they said.
So if the case comes before the Supreme Court now, the way I understand it, ties the lower court decision stands.
That's true.
All
But I'm suggesting that's not necessarily good law.
I'm not saying
And I
it's
don't
good
think you
law.
have to be on the
I'm not
left or
saying
the
it's
right
good law,
to-
and I'm
to
not
make
saying
that good law.
I'm
You
not
want to
saying
apply it to one
I'm
particular
saying,
situation.
I'm saying it might not be good law, but Trump is worried about that. That's why the push for Kavanaugh's confirmation.
Yes.
That's
Here-
what I'm saying. I'm
Here's
not-
how you overcome that, by the way. Let's say they
course.
vote and they say, yeah, it's double jeopardy. Well, Mueller doesn't have to indict Trump Jr. until after Trump isn't president anymore. It's only a couple of more years. Statute of limitations isn't going to run on any of these things.
Talking
And he
about
can
a
indict
sealed
him then, and he
indictment.
can indict Trump then, and everything else, and there's not going to be
Why-
anybody there to
why-
pardon him. So, I mean, that's all speculation. The point is, you have to look at the
Yeah,
principle.
but if you're
look
Trump-
forget about current events. Look at the principle. The principle, in my view, is basically wrong. Nobody should be tried twice for the same offense, and that's what I believe. And I
But
think
what about
a
different
lot of
fact?
fair.
What about different fact patterns?
If it's a different fact pattern, it's not
That's
double
different.
jeopardy.
It's not double
So
So
jeopardy.
that's the difference.
So there's so much chicanery done by the Trump people that so you let some charges go. They've done some other stuff.
But here's the point. Let me go one step further. The decision has nothing to do with the pardon powers of the president. The president can pardon people for federal crimes.
No, but
so
what
the way
does
to get
the-
around that with Trump Jr. is you just charge him in New York
In New
state
York.
courts, and then he can't pardon him.
Right.
He doesn't have to try him in both federal and state courts.
they would-
So it's not a real problem.
And
As far as
Cuomo
not
is
to the
not
not to
going
the
to-
facts of this situation.
Cuomo is going to be
You have to look at
fine.
the general principle, and that's what
Well,
the Supreme
what-
Court should look at, by the way,
That
and
they-
not President.
But they don't,
Circuit.
and that's the whole point.
Well, yeah,
for
they
some
do.
reason,
For the
your-
most part,
for
they
some
do.
reason, your law background makes it seem like, well, these people are really good people, and they look at the Constitution, and that's all bullshit. And I say again, and as I said before,
The prosecutors
Bush
want
versus
to
Gore.
win.
They
Supreme Court.
Listen, you have to look at the Supreme Court
The
from
prosecutors
1800
want
to
to
today,
win.
not just in 2-year segments here and there, and this case and that case. And over the course of time,
Really?
over the course, yeah,
They wanna
really.
win
over
too
the
much.
course of
Debates
time,
on
they've done the
I
right thing.
disagree with you 100% on that.
Okay,
but
well,
this is
you
not,
disagree
this
as
is
a
not, this is
historian,
not, this is
not
not,
as a legal purist.
this is not the forum for that. But no, I disagree with the Supreme Court being.
I
lot
have
of
to
this
say
over the course
that
of time.
politics definitely will play a role in how a
course.
court decides.
Of course.
Like with, I'm thinking right now about Sacco and Vanzetti. I mean,
Oh.
the story of the two Italian immigrants who were accused
First
of killing this payroll worker and.
You got to add one
problem
thing,
was-
John. They were anarchists. That
They were
affected the
communists
decision
or
too.
something.
My point is, there was this big scare about anarchists and pro movements to try to have them pardoned, and the state knew damn well they were innocent, but state of Massachusetts knew damn well they were innocent, but no, they were bound and determined to have them. The state was bound and determined to have Sacco and Vanzetti executed just because they were anarchists and Italian immigrants.
Right.
They just had to kill the bastards. I mean,
Right.
that's what
I'll
the
make a
notice said.
prediction here, and I hate
And
to
now
say
we're
this.
picking
it's
on
called-
If
black
Kavanaugh,
people,
if
said.
Kavanaugh gets confirmed, which there's a good
forbid.
chance there is, and the Democrats don't gain control of the House of Representatives, this country will look more like a dictatorship than a democracy.
Yes, I
That's
agree.
That's my prediction.
I agree.
I agree.
You know what?
You're
You're
I
not
agree,
giving-
but there's a
wait second.
couple
You're not giving
ifs
credit
in there.
to the other 8 jurists, and I know there are a lot of hard right-wingers on the Supreme Court. I know that. But you're really not looking at a problem. If you would look at the history of the Supreme Court, you would find
told you I don't want to
in a
debate you.
number of instances where presidents have appointed people to the Supreme Court that they thought would follow their
And they
their
didn't.
predilections, and they didn't.
They
In a
didn't.
year or two, they turned. They were originally conservative, and they became more moderate, and eventually a lot of them became
And
liberal.
the other way too.
And the other way too.
But that doesn't
what
think
they're
quite
doing,
as
and
much,
what
though.
that shows is what they're doing
I
is
don't
they're
think as
looking
much.
at the Constitution
What judges?
and the
wait,
law
wait.
the
The
way they
eight on the
believe it
court
is.
now. Forget Kavanaugh. I don't want to. The eight on the court. Name one whose philosophy at their hearing changed since they've been on the court. Name one.
What hearing?
Well, the
Roberts.
confirmation
Their own
it hasn't changed.
confirmation.
It hasn't
In
changed.
some instances, it
Well,
has. If it wasn't for Roberts, the Obamacare would have been out the window.
But
Okay.
But there's other rulings.
There's
Wait,
other
wait,
rulings, and there's
so
other
I'm
rulings
saying-
where he voted
and,
also
and,
in the
and
majority.
I go to the left and the right. That their confirmation, what they believed, and what the president, the eight on the court now, what the president thought they were getting, they got. Well, and,
For the
and-
most
and-
part.
But you're
But
looking
not
at it in a
entirely.
very, very small, you're
Not
looking at a
entirely.
microcosm. You have to look at it from the beginning of the court to now, and it's
they're
changed
going to be.
plenty
They're
of
going to
times.
be on the court, except for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They're going to be on the court for way longer than me. And the bottom
Ruth
line
Bader
is the
Ginsburg
court.
will
When
never
the
die.
court was put in the Constitution, nobody
Never.
lived past 40. So to put people on the court lifetime with these philosophies is ridiculous. So I have no faith in the court historically, and I don't want to debate that.
But
with
there's
you.
no
I
reason
do.
why
Neither
we
do I have
should.
faith in the court.
Why should
Well, I
we?
do.
Why should
I do
we?
have
We
faith in the
elect the rest of the government. We're the electorate. We can elect a better government.
Listen, I don't
think
have
it's-
faith. I don't have faith in the president.
I think it's
But that
really.
doesn't mean the
I don't
presidency
either. I don't have
is
faith in
corrupt.
Congress.
He's
I
corrupt.
think it's
One
really
at a
bad.
time. One at a time. They can't.
I
pick it
think
up.
it's really bad that those of us on the left keep on depending on the
I
courts
agree
to
with you.
save
I don't
us.
know. I agree with you.
We need to depend on ourselves
I
to
agree with
save
you.
us.
That's right. And
Well, what does that mean,
institutions-
Babette? What does that
That
mean?
means the
Gain control of the
electorate has to
legislative
vote.
branch, right?
Well,
Voting,
there you
that's
go.
the key. The V
When
word,
you're in
voting.
control, you can make the rules. You want left-leaning rules? Then you need a left-leaning
Exactly.
Congress.
judiciary and a
Exactly.
left-leaning Congress.
I don't need
well,
a
and
le-
that means voting. It has nothing to do
Now,
with
see,
what,
you
whether
just,
you're
Exactly.
left or
you
right.
just,
Hey,
you
wait, that
just
was my
defeated your own
point.
argument.
I didn't defeat my
You
own
just said
argument.
you need a left-leaning judiciary.
And
That's
well,
Well,
supposed
if you
to
think,
be
if you think
unbiased.
that's important,
That's unbiased. It's
And
they're supposed to be
legislature.
unbiased.
I'm just saying.
You just
Boys,
defeated your
one
own
at a
argument.
time.
They're supposed to be
Boys.
unbiased.
They can't pick you up
Come
if you're
on,
talking over
boys.
each other. That's the
Okay.
point. So please, I don't care who's next, but if you talk over the other one, they don't pick
Yeah,
anything
right.
up. It's just gibberish to them. Okay, so your point.
Irv, in the argument with Babette said, if you want a left-leaning court, you got to gain control. And his other argument before is the Supreme Court is this neutral body that straightens things out. You can't have it both ways. I don't want a left-leaning court. I don't want a right-wing. If I'm a leftist, I want a left-leaning legislature. I want a left-leaning executive, but I still want the court to be neutral. And if I were a right-winger, which I'm not, that's the same thing. But I don't want a left-leaning court. That's the problem. That's the problem we have now. The court is leaning, and it leans left, and it leans right. It shouldn't lean anyway.
So, Irv,
But you misrepresented my point. My point
You
was,
said it. I didn't
my point was
misrepresent
you
it.
don't know how the court is going to react down the road. Whether one of these people who
You
are
can
now
pretty well
far to the
predict
right
that
will
90%
become more moderate, and I think that they will.
I can
And think that it will balance
handicap
out.
the court better than I can handicap football or horse racing. I guarantee
okay,
you.
so I don't know if we got any of that, but okay. This is the end of this episode. Please tune in next week. We will try to wrap this up for you, and hopefully you've gotten something out of this discussion. Good night.
Conversations across time, 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 conversations across time.